Welcome to Our View. I am the producer and host, Lori Huff Smithers, and my co-host is Jean Nickel. Today, we are interviewing a lady who I really am very grateful to you, Naomi, because my husband and I joined her group, Santa Barbara Village. And we joined after Bill had had a small stroke, and I was in New Orleans at the time visiting my son and family, and Naomi just took over for us with her people and her group until I came home. So I thank you again for that, Naomi.
You're very welcome.
And welcome.
Thank you.
I know that you have much to tell us about Santa Barbara Village since you were interviewed 2 years ago when you first started. And so tell us some of your new programs and anything else you wish to tell us.
Well, Santa Barbara Village, not everybody in the community knows exactly who we are and what we do.
So do tell us that too.
So
that's a good starting
give you a little
point.
background.
Thank you for keeping me on my toes.
You're welcome. Well, Lori, you know so much about it because you're a member.
Well, I don't.
But,
so you can
but
tell
Jean
me.
does
She
it.
does it, you can tell her.
And probably a lot of the viewers don't. So Santa Barbara Village is a newer nonprofit organization here in town, but it's part of a nationwide movement called the Village Movement. And basically it's a membership organization for seniors who want to stay vibrant and independent and living in their own homes, whatever that means, whether they rent or own or whatever they call home. But they really, most of our members want to stay in their home, and we help with all sorts of things from volunteer help with light housework or light gardening or changing a light bulb if you don't want to get on a ladder, or transportation to a doctor's appointment or to a social event if you're not driving. And so we provide a lot of support in that way, and we also screen service providers locally who give discounts to our members. And then we have a whole program of social connection and educational workshops and cultural activities and stuff.
We had a handyman come through your group, and he just repaired many things in our homes, things that had been broken and needed repair for several years, and he was just wonderful. And he was a man that you recommended.
Right, so we had screened him,
You had
vetted him,
screened, right.
and he gave you a discount off of his usual services.
I think so.
Yes, he did. And sometimes people just have little things around the house that we could send a volunteer, so that's just included with their membership. And so it's really a way to keep people connected into their community and their neighborhoods, help them to continue living in their own homes, because sometimes that gets harder as we get older. You might not want to be getting on a ladder. One of our members recently said, I really miss vegetable gardening. I just can't bend over and I can't tend to it the way I used to, but I would love it if maybe a volunteer could help me plant some and come back every few weeks to kind of fertilize them and make sure they're okay. And so we were able to arrange that for him.
I agree with Doris Lessing. Did you read the articles about her? She said one of the handicaps of growing older is one has less and less energy. And that really bothers me.
It bothers
I
me.
used to put on a witch's hat and cackle when the kids came to the door. And this Halloween, I didn't even feel like going to the door, you know.
Yeah.
I'm interested in what you said because, in other words, you have a group like Angie's List. And these are the people that you send to attend to something that you can't find a volunteer for.
Right, or sometimes a member may say, I don't really want somebody come and fiddle with my, for example, we had a member, she had 2 lamps that were not working quite right. And she was happy to have a volunteer come and see if he could tinker with them and figure it out. But sometimes people will say, I actually don't want a volunteer, I want an actual service provider.
Right.
So sometimes people will choose one over the other, but we usually like to recommend that if we can help them with volunteer help, why not start that way?
I see. But basically, for kind of minimal needs, you're there.
Right, and so Lori actually, with Bill, that was a good example. You know, Bill, as you said, had had a stroke and you were out of town.
Yes, and he was in the hospital and I was in New Orleans.
Right, and so Bill called me and said, Lori's in New Orleans. And it was the Friday, midday Friday before the Christmas long weekend.
Oh dear.
And Christmas that year was on a Monday, so it was
Yes.
going to be a very long weekend.
And if you remember, I called you too. We both called.
Right.
We both called her.
The triangulation of the calls,
Right.
and Bill said, I'm at Cottage Hospital, and I said, I hope you're visiting somebody and you're just bored that you're calling me. And he said, no, I actually unfortunately had a stroke and Lori's out of town and I don't have anybody, and I'm a little confused about what's going on, and they've told me that I'm going to be released today or tomorrow. And I don't know what help I'm going to need or how this is going to work or how I'm going to get home. And so I was able to call, that's beyond the scope of what we want our volunteers helping people with, but I called one of our in-home care providers, one of the agencies that we work with, that we've screened, and I called, and within an hour I had one of them at his bedside at Cottage Hospital doing an intake to ascertain what help he needed. And then Lori had the peace of mind of knowing someone and a professional was there helping take care of him until she could get home a few days later.
Oh, that's great.
It really was, because I was just going to come right home, you know, and he said, oh, no, don't change your ticket. You probably can't get on a flight anyway. And so these people were there taking care of him.
That was wonderful.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's nice. And we've had, you know, since I was on the show 2 years ago,
Yes.
we had, in fact, we hadn't quite launched yet when I was on the show. We were pre-launch. And we officially opened on January 1st of 2012, so we're nearly 2 years old. And it's just been really neat to see how we are actually impacting people's lives in a positive way now that we've been in business for 2 years, and seeing how we, you know, for Bill, he was a great example that we were able to really be there in a time of need. But we're also able to be there in times of when people don't have a need, but they just really enjoy feeling connected into a new community that really they can kind of create and call their own with people that they didn't know before. And we're seeing friendships sprout up between members, and we have monthly coffee events and monthly chat groups and a reading group. And so it's really nice being there, sort of rounding out people's lives.
I've enjoyed your coffee, coffees you've had. And Jean, one of the ladies that came to my book signing and my talk at Granada was a lady I'd met at
really?
Natalie, a lady I had met at one of the Santa Barbara Village coffees.
I think it's a great idea. You see, I was living alone in my house for 11 years. Not wanting to leave, you see,
Right.
Yes.
because you know you love your own home and you keep feeling, oh, I'll be able to handle this. Well, my family was driving me crazy. Get out of there. Get where someone can take care of you. In the end, I did move to a retirement community. But if I had really known about Santa Barbara Village, I think I would have stayed in my house.
I think you would too, because you also had a rental at the back, someone that was there.
Right.
Yes.
I think I definitely would have stayed.
However, when you broke your shoulder, it was
No,
nice.
that was good.
It was nice to be where you could have you.
But we have a member who recently accidentally fell, and who falls on purpose, but she accidentally fell and cracked her pelvis.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that happened to me in an auto accident.
And
It's painful.
it's painful
Yes.
and it's debilitating, and
Yes.
she lives alone. And with our help, and we were able to help her with volunteer help to a certain degree, but we also were able to line up special services for her that enabled her to actually stay and recover at home. And that might not have been possible otherwise. And for some people, even if it's just our services can allow them to live at home for a while longer, it's however long they possibly can.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, you know, a lot of what we do to help people is through our volunteers. We have a wonderful group of volunteers.
Yes, you do.
And when we say, what's motivating you to volunteer? Or I love it, I'll get questions, somebody thinking of signing up will say, well, I don't understand why would anybody want to volunteer to do these things? And the two main reasons that we hear are either someone saying, I want to pay it forward because I know I'm going to need it at some point, and I hope someone will be there to help me. And I'd like the village to be there. So if I can help make the village happen and prosper, then I'm happy to be a part of it and to pay it forward for myself. And the other reason is people will hear pretty frequently is, I wish that when my mom was alive, there had been a village to help her.
Right.
Or my dad or my parents. Or I wish I had known about a village before we moved our parents into an assisted living or whatnot, because frankly, a lot of people are happier in their home. And a lot of times they'll move simply because of the difficulty of sort of the daily life chores of maintaining a home and getting around. So it's neat that our volunteers recognize that and will say, I couldn't do it for my own mom or my own dad, but I'm happy to do it for somebody else's, if that will allow somebody else's parents to continue living at home for longer.
I dread sorting through everything that has meaning to me, heirlooms and family.
Oh, I dread that too.
I did it for my mother, a 3-story brick home, and it took me 6 weeks.
Yeah.
You know, when she moved to assisted living, yes.
Yeah.
And I dread doing it for myself, and yet I hate to leave it for my children to do. I should get one of your volunteers.
I was actually just going to
me.
say we've had
Yes.
volunteers help
Yes.
help our members go through some of their stuff, and
Yes.
it's been helpful to them.
You have things in storage, right?
Yes.
That's probably what I'll do too, because I
Someone
can't
still
bear
has to go
part.
through it.
I can't bear to part with it.
Oh, well, I would be happy to part with it. I can't take care of it myself.
Yes.
And my children are saying, oh, well, somebody will want it. But
Yes.
none of them have gone near this storage place since we went and put the stuff there. They've never even gone to check it, so I feel as if I don't think they really want anything very badly.
But
you know.
maybe they will, though.
Maybe
Yeah, they may,
maybe later.
you
You know, with 3 children and grandchildren, why, you know, they could want your
Yeah,
things.
my grandchildren have nothing. They would like some of
Sure.
that furniture.
Sure.
Tell me something. I'm curious because at one point I volunteered for a woman I barely knew. Her husband had the beginnings of Alzheimer's. She could never get out of her house.
Yeah.
And so a friend of hers had sort of organized something where people would go and stay with her husband for a few hours,
Right,
just so she
respite
could
care.
get out.
Wonderful.
So I did that for a while, but I mean, I was thankful he didn't have an episode or something that I wouldn't have been able to handle.
Oh my gosh, yes.
And it's sort of touchy, you know, how much help you can give.
Well, that's true, and what we have experienced is sometimes that spouse who is experiencing dementia or Alzheimer's often doesn't want somebody they don't know in their home. So that can actually make it very difficult for the caretaking spouse to actually even get time away, even if somebody's willing to come in. So it can be challenging. We did have an experience with one member who it was getting more, that situation was going on, and she was the caretaker, and I could see it was taking a toll on her.
Oh, yeah.
But she felt very responsible and didn't feel she could leave him, and he didn't want new people in the home. And so we worked with her over a period of time to introduce one of our in-home care providers. We went to the house because they then had already a relationship with me as the village staff member, and we brought in one of the care providers just to meet them, and then slowly 1 hour a week until there was sort of more of a, we sort of helped build a bridge to that caretaking, so that the member could go, the caretaking member could go away and get time to go to the YMCA or take a walk or visit her girlfriends.
Yes.
And I think it really made a difference.
Oh, I'm
in
sure
both
it
of their
makes
lives.
a big difference. I know this woman thanked me all the time, and all I did was go over, and I'd say, you know, I can read the paper to you if you like or whatever. And after a few minutes, he'd say, "I think I'll go and lie down." It was like, who needs you, you know? And so
he wasn't attracted to you at all.
well, I wouldn't say that. He didn't ask me to get into the bed with him after all, Lori. What are you thinking?
Well, you never know.
No, he just didn't like the idea of being left with a stranger. Ultimately,
Right,
I wasn't
right.
such a stranger because I
Yes.
did it for quite a while.
Well, and that's like what I said, the bridging is helpful with somebody that you trust. And one of the other things that I should mention, I think is important about what the Village does is we actually do background checks on all of our volunteers.
I wondered about that.
So we do background checks and we do an interview process and we ask for references and we check references. And if they're going to be driving our members, we do a DMV check on them. So, and we do a training process. So
You have to do that
Yeah.
because,
Yes.
after all, they're going into someone's home.
right. Or they may not be going into their home, but they're still in direct contact with them, and we want to make sure that we're not sending some nefarious character into somebody's home.
You said they may not be going into their home. How do you help people in other places? Do you also help people in like assisted living or care
Well,
centers?
we on the one hand, they might not go into somebody's home because they might just be picking them up to drive
Oh,
them
I see
somewhere.
what you're
Yes.
saying.
But
Yes.
or picking them up to bring them to one of our social events and to our coffee, for instance,
Right.
and
Or
they'll
to a
stay.
doctor.
Or to the doctor and drop them
Right.
off, or to a friend's to visit a
Or a
friend.
beauty salon.
Exactly,
Right,
exactly.
I get
but
it.
but we have. I lost my train of thought on this one. So that they.
About they help people otherwise
Oh
rather
no!
than just
with
in
the
the
assisted
home.
living is
Yes.
that we have our first member who lives at Maravilla.
Oh, really?
Joined, and I was surprised. It was actually her daughter. A lot of the first inquiries from families we get is from a family member of a potential member.
Uh-huh.
So an adult child will call and say, "Oh, I found you on the internet. My mom or dad lives alone in Santa Barbara or in Goleta, and we're worried about them and think that they're not getting out much or whatnot, and so we want to know more about you." But we got a call recently from somebody, an adult child, who said, we just moved my mom to Santa Barbara from another town where she had lived for 50-something years because we just felt we were too worried. Like your children said, we're too worried about you in your home. We don't want you. It's too much
Right.
for you to take care of it. Come on, Mom, move up to Santa Barbara. So they moved her into Maravilla, and at the same time in the process, basically sold her car for her and said, you probably don't feel comfortable driving in a new town, which she didn't. And she was at Maravilla, which it's a great facility, but she felt isolated and she wanted, I love it, she said to me, "I feel like I'm around old people all day."
That's the famous
I don't
line.
want to be around old people all day. So she wanted opportunities to get out and be with other people outside of the Maravilla
Right.
So she
structure.
could come to some of your social
So she
events.
comes to our social events, and
Right.
she came to our Tai Chi class and all of that. So she was sort of a new type of member for us that we hadn't quite thought of people being interested that
Yes,
way.
yes.
But that is an important piece of the Village to a lot of people, is that social connection component, that sort of the safety net of having the staff there, but also a safety net of having new friends, either because people have lost friends or they're a newer transplant or for whatever reasons. So it's nice to be thought of as that safety net and being
Yes.
the peace of mind that we can offer people and their families. And it's also been really nice to see, in a few instances, I guess I would say we've helped rebalance family dynamics or relationships in some cases where the member lives here, the adult child lives, it might be in Camarillo or Los Osos or somewhere, and so they're not close enough to help with everything all the time. So when they come visit, it's let's get you to the doctor, let's get to the market and make sure you're stocked up, let's go to the pharmacy, let's make sure your appointments are made, and that's what the visits become.
Yeah.
And then if we come in as the Village and say, well, we'll take you to the doctor and we can make sure your prescriptions get picked up and we can help you do the grocery
That's
shopping
great
and all
help.
that.
Yes.
When the adult child comes into town, great, go to dinner, go to the theater, go have lunch. So it's sort of rebalancing that relationship again, because we're taking care with the member of those more daily living needs.
That's great.
It really is. And the adult child is probably rushing to get everything done, and then home, and now that they can relax and enjoy each other.
Exactly.
That's
so it's
wonderful.
really been nice to see that happen, actually, in a few families that we work with. So. And it's been really interesting for me getting to know so many different organizations in the community, because we want to be a resource that connects our members and their families to all sorts of resources in the community. We're not just sort of a standalone bubble in our community, either as individuals or us as an organization. So it's been a really interesting 2 years since I was here last, and where we are now and how many connections we've made. And
that's great.
Really
and then the fact that there are villages in other places, for example, let's say somebody has a child in Boston and they go to stay there for a while. Do they have to join that village organization?
That's a great question, because
yes, it is.
because that question has been asked apparently a lot over the last few years. The oldest village is 12 years old, and it started in Boston.
Yeah, I read that.
And so most villages right now, I think the average age is about 3 to 4 years. I'm pretty sure. And so there's been more and more questions, and we're popping up all over the nation. There's I think 130 villages that are open and operating right now, and figures are between 1 and 300 in some form of development. So
that's
there's
about 2 for each state, and probably more for
well,
some
certain states have none, and some states have a lot. California is the fastest growing state of villages actually right now.
I'm sure.
Although Santa Barbara Village is the only one between Santa Monica and the Bay Area.
Oh, is there one in the Bay Area?
There's a number in the Bay Area and a number down south, but we're the only ones in the middle. And so a lot of questions have been asked by different village members. Well, we go to Florida for a few months a year, or oh, we're going to Colorado for a month. Could we use their village services? And it didn't work that way previously, but they're just starting a new network among villages that would like to join it, where there will be some reciprocity between villages. So we're looking into what that would entail, and if we might join that.
That would be good to pursue.
Yeah.
Now, tell me something. How would this be helpful to a married couple, for example, both working, and they're both about 58 or 60? They haven't got Medicare or anything. If they joined, would it be useful to them?
It really depends on what the value of the village is to them. If any of our services or our social activities or any of that is of interest to them, we do have our youngest member is, I think, in her late 50s. And for health reasons, she has found the village really useful for her. Our average age right now is, I think, 75, 76.
Yeah.
But we are open to anyone 50 or better. So it's
50 seems rather young to me.
It does, and I
but
think
if they have health problems, I can understand.
It's a health problems, or
yes.
if they're, for whatever reason, we had one of our members. She was getting towards the point of retiring, and she said, I suddenly realized that my friends and my social sphere has all been about work, and I'm going to retire. And I'm afraid I'm not going to have that. I'm going to be sort of isolated and alone and on my own island. And so she joined with the expectation that for her the value would be the social connection. And unfortunately, she had some medical issues come up, and we were able to help her with all of that. And so it ended up being really useful for her in a different way. We really encourage people to think about joining the village early, because if we know you already and you're already part of our sphere, our network, and something happens to you, we can much more easily and readily help kind of come in and take care of whatever needs to be taken care of, rather than, oh, I've fallen, I'm in the hospital, and now I'm calling you. That makes it a little bit more difficult.
That's what we did.
But I had known Bill.
Yes,
and we had been talking, and he had been talking about signing up. So I had already done a lot of the prep work with him, so it worked out well.
We interviewed you, and also you knew we were going to join.
Right.
We just
right.
hadn't paid yet.
Yeah, so that worked out. But it
Yes.
does make it harder, and people, when something happens to you, we had a volunteer, for instance, who had an unexpected major surgery, and she said, I didn't hear from her for a while, and then she said, I wished I had joined before so you could have been there. And I said, well, why didn't you call us right after it happened? And she said, I was too tired. It was too much. I had too many other things to think about. It was just too much to deal with. And the other reason we tell people to try to think about joining earlier if they have the means to do it, is that we're a new concept, so people are trying to wrap their heads around it, and we're really trying to find the best way to be sustainable. And our membership dues are right now about a quarter. They cover about a quarter of our operations costs. So as we bolster our membership, we're bolstering the organization for the future in Santa Barbara. So
excellent. I'm just thinking, my son-in-law had a knee replacement, and he had to be, at home.
Yes.
And my daughter works, and it was like, well, will Doug come over Tuesday? Well, will so-and-so come? Because of the idea of him being, finally his mother showed up, which is rather ridiculous.
But this could have been ideal for them.
I
since
know,
it's in
that's
the
why I
San
asked
Francisco.
about
Yeah.
it.
Now, we only have 2 minutes left. Is there something you want to tell our viewing audience, something new that you're offering, or something we haven't covered?
Well, I would encourage people to sign up for our newsletter. It's free, and you can do it on our website, which is www.sbvillage.org.
Or
and
it's good to remember, because
yes,
I kept
it's
saying
an
com.
organization, not com.
Right.
Although if you hit com, it'll still take you to our website. But you'll get informed about all of our upcoming events. A lot of our events are open to the public, not everything. So you can kind of get to know us more and visit our website. It has a lot of information about us. And we really encourage people who are interested in volunteering to get in touch with us too. Or who are interested in maybe sponsoring the village, a business that would like to have a connection with us. So we really want to be an integral part of our community, and that's what we're working towards.
And the volunteers can think if they want to eventually join or not.
Right, a number of our volunteers do
They
plan
can
on joining.
check you out, so to speak.
Yeah,
Right.
it's true. It's true. So it's really neat being part of it, and I love that you're part of it too, Lori.
Well,
So-
thank you. I think we're almost done. How many minutes do we have left? Kayla's on our mic. Sorry, I can't see. Okay, thank you.